Hello everyone! Welcome to today's video. Recently I saw a YouTube video that made me think I can do that, so this is me now doing that thing. I am going to attempt to knit and crochet for 24 straight hours. As in, I'm going to be up for a full calendar day. And in order to pull this off successfully, there have to be some ground rules, which I'm going to say real quick. The two activities for the hours are knitting and crocheting. I'm not going to switch to any other crafts during that time. That being said, if I end up working on a craft that needs some finishing, I am allowed to do minimal finishing, but I can't switch to a whole hour of sewing just to finish a bunch of projects up. That has to happen after the challenge. Now, because I won't be able to change myself out of my human form during this challenge, I have to accept the fact that I need to be able to take breaks. So I will allow myself to take breaks if I need to use the bathroom or if I get hungry, but I have to keep said breaks to a minimum. I know from experience with the time lapses that I can usually get to about an hour to an hour and a half of straight knitting or crocheting before I need to take a break in some format. I can switch between crafts and locations. So if I decide hey, I'm bored of this, let me do something else, I can do that. Or it's I'm tired of this room, let me go to that room, I can do that too. I am not going to be able to sleep. The entire point of this challenge is to stay up for the entire time. So, no sleeping. However, I am able to use caffeine. So, I'm probably going to keep my caffeine use to a minimum because my body does not react well to caffeine. But if I need that little boost, I can use caffeine or sugar or any other method to stay awake. Lastly, I'm not going to film for the entire time, in that I'm going to check in every so often, and I will have a timer on my phone that shows how much time has elapsed. But I'm not going to film every single second of the 24 hours, because one, that's a lot of time to edit, and two, there are some parts of my day the world does not need to see. So yeah. I already have a couple crafts in mind, one crochet craft and one knitting craft that I'm going to be working on during that time, and I'm pretty excited for it. Anyway, at this point, I'm going to have one more rest period, and then I'm going to start the challenge from then. So rest period stands for an entire sleep period after which I feel well rested. So probably 8 hours or so. I can't say whether that's going to be night or daytime because my schedule has been absolutely screwy. And it's actually been somewhat of a motivation for me to do this, to find out what hours I actually want to be awake, now that I have a choice in what hours those are going to be. But yeah, once I wake up for my next rest period, I'm going to eat a quick meal probably, and then show you what time that is, and then get started with the challenge. Okay, I haven't fallen asleep yet, but since I decided that I was going to do the 24-hour challenge with less than 24 hours to go before the challenge, I realized I had to prepare a couple things first. So I decided that I didn't want to waste any time winding the balls before the projects. I ended up winding 6 balls today, just so I can just pick up the yarn and go. I don't have to waste any time during the 24 hours getting the yarn ready to use or deal with any tangles or whatnot. And my game plan for right now is to start the crochet project first, because I found a crochet project that is really intriguing, but it's a little bit more complicated than what I've done. So if I plan that for when I first start, then I should be able to attempt the more difficult pattern when my mind is theoretically most fresh, even though it does take me like 2 hours to wake up. And then as I theoretically burn brain energy throughout the day, I'll switch over to a pattern that I've done over a dozen times at this point. I have yet to actually count how many times I've done that pattern because it is still verifiable. But it's something that I feel relatively confident on that I could still do even if I'm only powering at 10% of what I usually am. So I've got a grab bag here full of everything that I need. Like the pattern, the yarn, and other things. So theoretically, I can set up shop here to start off with and just chill in my bed for the first part of the day before I have a scenery change. Although, technically, it'll be coming back to the bed after I eat a meal. But I also know if I'm going to stay up for 24 hours, if I want to spend any time in my bed whatsoever, it's less of a risk if I do it at the beginning part of the day versus the later part of the day, where this challenge is probably going to end in the living room. Either in the living room or in my studio. I know I'm probably not going to finish it in the same place where I started it. So at this point, all I have left to do is fall asleep so I can get the challenge started. Alright, I woke up at 1:30 and then I had a quick meal of whatever I felt like eating. So it is about to hit 2:10, and once it does, the clock will start. So I think I chose the earlier part of the minute. You ever had that moment where you're just like staring at the thing? I don't know why I chose 2:10. It's just when I happen to get ready, which honestly 40 minutes to get ready, pretty good for me. There you go. 2:10. Time starts now. So, for the crochet project that I'm going to try first, I've got this nice cowboy hat that I found in a library book, and I'm going to use this yarn. So, okay, yeah. So I'm going to get started on that now. Alright, so I'm about that far into it, which I have made a discovery that is both exciting but also maybe the end of me. So I found out on Spotify that they also have classical musicians, which means I have interesting instrumental music to listen to as I'm trying to count on the hat. And it's good because I'm not having to listen to music with lyrics that are interfering with me going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But the bad part is the violins combined with the warmness of my bed from me having been there for over an hour is lulling me back to sleep, and we're not even 2 hours in. So I might need to get up and do some stretches like I know how to do, but I just am a little bit out of practice. And hopefully that will be enough to re-energize me without having to indulge in any wake-up substances right off the bat. But also the pattern has been a little bit more frustrating because between row 7 and row 8, they wanted me to increase 2 stitches, but there was nothing in the instructions that said increase. You can't expect me to go from 58 stitches to 60 stitches without an increase. So I had to stop skipping the stitches like they were telling me to do, and increase there instead, which means I now have this little weird knobbly bump on part of the hat, which I'm not happy about. But in general, it is intriguing to actually be able to focus on the act of crocheting itself without having to have words constantly pummeled into my mind. Like, I know I'm probably going to be spending a good portion of this watching TV, and I'm probably going to be spending another good portion of this listening to music. So I don't necessarily want all 24 hours to be just pummeling words into my mind, because I can't handle that on a normal day. Anyway, I'm going to stretch, and then I'm going to get back to this hat. Alright, we are here, and I have hit my first wall. I'm starting row 17. I'm about to start a new stitch called a cluster. I ended up switching up the music to try to make it easier on me, although I had to really pay attention. But even though I've kind of finally figured out what the cluster is supposed to be, I just need to change locations. I've been here too long. I need to switch to another craft, to another spot. So I'm thinking living room. And probably start watching one of the 3 shows I've started that I need to continue. Right now I'm leaning towards Ultimate Airport Dubai, which, while it's a very interesting documentary, is also somewhat stressful because I overly relate to some of the people there. But yeah, I think it's time to take a break on Cowboy Hat, which, considering I did this in 2.5 hours from nothing, pretty impressive. Yeah. Alright, so I've been watching TV for 2 to 3 hours now ish. I'm about to hit the 5-hour mark, and I made quite a bit of progress knitting wise. I switched to the easier pattern a lot quicker than I was expecting to. But I'm starting to realize that this may end up being longer than I was expecting it to be. So, as with the progress, I had one of these legs to finish for this frog. And then I just went ahead and made the eyes for 5 different types of frogs with the yarn that most of these are with the yarn that I brought down earlier. Which, wait, do I have enough? I should. Wait, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't. I thought I had 10 here, but no, I just have 9 because couple of, wait, no, wait, 3, 6, no, I have 10, and then I've started the bodies. So this is the body of one frog right here. I just have one more row left to do before I have to cast it off. Anyway, I've started intaking food, or drink actually, and I'm like about halfway through the Dubai show that I had left, which will take me part of the way before I will probably have to switch off of the TV, simply because I will need a change in scenery. I wasn't expecting my legs to hurt as much as they're doing. My arms are not feeling that bad. My arms are like moving amazingly, but my legs, no, they're not doing well. My right knee in particular is really painful, which is strange. It's a strange situation that the limb that's not even involved with the knitting is the one that's hurting right. So, yeah, I'm gonna get back to knitting while apparently we must contain a possible Ebola incident, which is probably one of the scariest things they had to deal with before COVID. I have passed the 6-hour mark, which means I'm a fourth of the way there. I just took like a half-hour break just to eat because I realized it'd been 6 hours since I had a meal, so I wasn't really feeling hungry, I was more feeling lightheaded. So I decided to actually get some food in me and take a break from the TV a little bit. I'm gonna go back to watching the TV. I've gotten another one almost done. And then I think once I finish the 2 episodes of the show that I'm on now, which will mean I complete that entire series, I will be ripe for a location change and a project change. So I'm going to get started again. I'm at about 8.5 hours now. And I did last a little bit longer than I was expecting before the project switch, but it's now time for the third project switch, because I'm kind of counting all the frogs as like one project, even though they're going to be multiple frogs when they're done, and I'm working on them in bits. So I got like 2 complete frog main parts of the bodies done. But now I'm going to work on an elephant. I'm going to follow a French pattern for it. And I've got this gray yarn that I want to use, but it's currently attached to trolley. I'm not done with it on trolley, so I'm going to pull a huge amount out in order to, what's it called? It's been a full day, so like this has been like a school day's worth of just straight focus, so that's why I'm like this. I would typically be like this at 8 hours in. But I'm going to pull a bunch of yarn out before doing it because like I do have another skein, but I have plans for that other skein before I pull it out. So I'm just going to pull out a huge amount to make sure I got more than enough, and then I'm going to get started on the elephant. And we'll see how it goes from there. It is a very beautiful day outside. It's still probably, I'm going to hope that this is enough for what I need. Even though it's a yarn eater. There you go. I'm going to throw that in trolley. But I do hope to get a chance to go outside today. Because it's like, I don't know how cold it is, but it is super sunny. And there's like no precipitation. It does look like it's very windy though from how the wind's going through the trees. I'm going to avoid turning on the electronics right away. I'm going to try to see how much I can get done before I feel the need to turn them on, so that way my mind gets a bit of a break from the hours of TV that I've just been watching. So I'm going to get started on the elephant now. I'm over halfway there. And as you can see, I've changed locations again. I realized if I was going to come back down to my bedroom as a location, it'd be better if I still did it during the first half when I knew I could still stay relatively awake. And I made good progress on the elephant, but then I came back down here and I ended up having to pull out a row of the cluster because I forgot a step, but then I was able to remake the progress and I'm on the brim now. It kind of looks more, probably because of the color I chose, it probably looks more like an Easter bonnet than it does a cowboy hat, but I have to remind myself part of the cowboy hat's iconic look is the brim. And I just started the brim, so once I get more done on the brim and get the brim shaped to how it's supposed to be, it should look more like a cowboy hat. I'm thinking about going to get more food. It's interesting, like often like my primary
method when I feel low on energy is, oh, let's take a nap. But I can't take a nap. I have to be awake for 24 hours. And it's like, well, we need to get this energy another way. How about food? So, yeah, I've eaten quite a bit, but I'm probably going to be eating a little bit more. Because it has been like 6 hours-ish since my last meal, even though I had a snack in between then and now. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get some food.
I've kind of lost track of what time it is. Although I did bring my phone out here, so we're about to hit 13 and a half hours. And I decided it's time for a little change of scenery. I'm out back. And I brought my project that I was doing in the bedroom out here. And I'm just going to enjoy some of the sun. It's really beautiful outside. I might be a little bit overdressed for this actually. But one of the things that this is really making me aware of is just how much time there actually is in the day, because often I just try to sleep a lot of it away, you know? But when I'm forced to stay awake for this amount of time, it really forces me to take inventory of every minute, every second, to try to really think about what it is that, like, how I actually want to use up that time. I made the progress that I'm going to be able to make on my hat outside. I have one row left, but that row requires me to use wire, and I left the wire upstairs. So I have to go get it. I don't know if I'm going to run out before that happens. It could go either way at this point. I mean, I'm not going to lose yarn chicken because I have more, but I have to find out how much I overplanned. At this point, there have been more periods of me just staring at the project that I'm working on, taking longer gaps in between. It's kind of just enjoying the process, because I mean, the goal is to stay awake for 24 hours and be knitting and crocheting for the majority of that time. It has nothing about how fast I'm actually going, which is a strange thing to be thinking about, actually. I mean, if I stay up for the 24 hours, how much progress I made on a project doesn't really have, like, if I don't make the progress that I wish I made, it doesn't really have any bearing over the fact if I stayed up 24 hours or not, yeah? Also, I haven't had caffeine at this point. I thought I was going to want it, but I don't really want any at the moment. I'm at almost 16 and a half hours now. Just had supper, and I've switched back to knitting frocks. Yeehaw! I finished the hat. I mean, I never made it back up to where the wire was to work, but I ended up walking up to get the pipe cleaners, and I'm not sure one pipe cleaner was enough to make the hat work, but I literally ran out of yarn as the skein, like, as I was completing the last stitches. Like, the yarn wasn't entirely even, and one stitch here, it's literally, like, I was double banding it the entire way, but one stitch was literally just like a single thread, and I just made it work, because I mean, I would attach the new balls of yarn for a whole row, but when it comes to one stitch, it's like, can I really make that work? Yeah, so this is how far I'm in now. I've spent a lot of it watching TV with my family, but I'm probably going to be in front of the TV for the rest of it, And we're going to be sticking with simple stuff for now. I think at this point, I'm probably not going to be touching the elephant again today. And at this point, I'm just going to be sticking with knitting. I'm going to see how many toes I can get. So I got like 8 toes in my hand right now, if I have them all. See, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So toe number 8 is probably somewhere lost. Unless I miscounted again. That is entirely possible. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. I miscounted again. Just a row counter here, okay? Anyway, I'm giving the chance for the TV to cool off. I gave the TV a chance to cool off for a little bit because after I finished the Dubai documentary, the streaming service promoted another documentary called To Catch a Smuggler, I think it was, and Mom then proceeded to watch over 20 of them in procession. And I joined in on quite a few of them. I didn't join in on all of them, but quite a few of them. So the TV's been pretty much running all day. Yeah, I'm at that point of the day where my cognitive function's not so great. And I still haven't had any caffeine. I'm wanting caffeine now. But I'm also too lazy to get it. I'm probably going to get like some sort of drink and some chocolate. Maybe, I was about to say maybe convince myself that hot chocolate is just really good tasting coffee. But I'm not sure I even have the motivation to make hot chocolate. Anyway, I'm thinking about just putting on a DVD and just letting it go. And at this point, I think it's just trying to see how many frog toes I can make before it hits 2:10 in the morning. With the wire and the brim, this does look more like a cowboy hat. I'm glad I have something done. And oh yeah, my wrist hurts now. My hands actually hurt now. It's not just my knee, which my knee has been hurting throughout the entire day, but I actually hurt my hand. I guess close to 20 hours of knitting would do that to it. The last stitch here wanted me to work, crochet. I usually work from right to left, but the stitch wanted me to work from left to right while I'm holding the hook in my right hand, and it's like that's not happening tonight. So I just ended up flipping the work around instead of my hook. So I'm gonna stop rambling and start making a little bit more progress. I have now been officially up for 24 hours. I have a headache. I did quite a bit of knitting and crocheting. And now I want to sleep. I'm not going to set the alarm. I wake up when I wake up, and I will recap when I am of a sounder state of mind. Okay, I'm going to say right now that I feel very similarly to how I was when I was a little kid and I went to a sleepover, and instead of sleeping at the sleepover like literally everyone else did, I stayed up for the entire night and then crashed once I got home because I literally could not fall asleep. But the difference is this time I'm 30. And nobody told me that this was, well, not, I don't think that it was. No one told me that this could potentially be a bad idea because I didn't ask anyone for permission to do this. I just did it. Oh yeah, I'm ready to fall asleep now. It is after the challenge. It's more than 24 hours since it ended, but I spent the majority of the time after the challenge asleep. I woke up like 6 hours after I originally fell asleep. Like, I didn't go to sleep right away. I somehow forced myself to stay up for another hour for whatever godforsaken reason. And then I fell asleep. And I woke up 6 hours later. I saw the time, which was a perfectly normal time to wake up. And I just went, no, I don't want to be awake. And I fell back asleep. So I eventually woke back up like 3 in the afternoon. And then after dinner, I took another nap. It took me another 8 hours, apparently. I only meant to take an hour and a half, and it took me a bit longer. And it's interesting because I'm not sure I always go to sleep with the intention of being asleep. I think sometimes I go to take a nap to clear my mind. And like this really blew that into relief for me because like I wasn't aware at how much I'd come to rely on that technique to kind of like reset my mind. It's like the equivalent of if someone was rebooting their computer after using it at least 2 times a day. I don't really know what hours I preferred being awake. All I know is that I really do appreciate my sleep. And something that like really struck me as interesting is I didn't realize until after I'd completed it that I had performed a fast. So I was raised as a practicing Catholic. As I became older, I became a non-practicing Catholic. But as I got older, while I started exploring other routes, I never formally took away the signs that make me Catholic. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still Catholic, even though I have not been practicing for almost as long as I was practicing at this point. But what strikes me as like, wow, would you look at that, is the fact that I performed a fast during the season of Lent. For those of you who are not familiar with Catholicism, Lent is the church season before Easter that is focused on fasting. And while it wasn't necessarily a food fast, I basically took a fast from sleep. Something that I enjoy very, very much. And the second dash of irony is that I performed this fast on a Sunday, which actually happens to be the one day in Lent where you don't have to perform the fast. Lent is 40 days long, but when they count the 40 days, they do not count the Sundays. I don't know why it went like that, but as for all the logistical stuff, it went very well. I looked at the footage that I filmed for the challenge, and it adds up so far to being about a half hour. And I know I wasn't like knitting and filming at the same time for the most part. And then I had about 3 meals yesterday, and each meal took about a half hour. So that totals up to 2 hours. And then all the bathroom stuff took less than a half hour. So when it's all said and done, I had at least 21 hours where I was either knitting or crocheting during that 24-hour period, which I find to be pretty good. I ended up, if I remember right, I was in 5 different locations in 4 different rooms. There was one point in the living room where I did sit in 2 different chairs. I only filmed myself on one part, but I'm pretty sure there was another spot where I was sitting in a different chair because of how my family was arranged on the couch. So I'm counting it as a different location because it was a different piece of furniture. And overall, I was working on 3 separate projects, and I did complete one at least. Yeah, there was at least one completed project. That was the hat, which you guys saw. And then I'm counting with the frogs. I ended up completing 2 frogs. I got all the pieces for 2 frogs and most of the pieces for another frog. Anyway, I'm going to insert footage of all the things that I completed right here. So over here you see the hat that I had mentioned before, and then we got the eyes of 5 different frogs right up there. And then here we have the body parts for 2 complete frogs plus part of another frog. And then right there we have as far as I got on the elephant. And I forgot about this guy, which happens to be the back leg for a different frog. Now, I was able to stay awake the entire time. I did not slip off into sleep once. And fortunately, I didn't need any caffeine to do it. I did have a couple of contingency plans to help me out in case I felt I really needed that last push. But fortunately, I didn't have to use either one of them. So the first one would have involved taking a walk to the Wawa to get a smoothie and some sort of caffeine. And the other one involved filling the bathtub with really cold water to kind of shock myself into being awake. I'm very thankful I didn't have to go there. I was able to stay awake on pure willpower. So that was interesting to know about myself. Although considering I have a pattern of avoiding going to bed, I guess I shouldn't have been too surprised. Now, as to whether I would do this again in the future, probably not right away, probably not for a very long time, but I'm not going to say that I wouldn't ever do this again. It is something I could see myself wanting to do again in the future, maybe seeing like, hey, I'm older now, is my body still the same type of thing, but I don't see myself pulling this trick for a long, long time. It's like, I'm glad I did it, but I'm not first in line to do it again, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.